Also, you mentioned like you got a $10,000 MIT grant. So was it related to TCP or something else?
Because it is a huge thing to get a $10,000 MIT grant.
We just recently fundraised about 70,000 rupees. And unfortunately, there was this one patient who was ready to mortgage the house. And there was one horror story. This isn't a horror story where a patient was ready to mortgage their child.
So 1, 2, 3.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Ansh and Radhika.
And today we have Varshini Vijay with us. Hi Varshini, how are you doing?
Hi everyone, I'm doing great. How are you?
Thank you so much for doing this. Firstly, welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm so excited.
Pleasure. So Varshini is she runs a NGO called TCP, Teens for Cancer Patients, which has over 400 volunteers, and she's been working across 15 countries, nine countries, right?
Actually, it became 11 really recently.
Great, 11 countries. And Varshini, please go ahead. You can, I think, better introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Varshini, and I am really passionate about cancer prevention. I took to it to start a non-profit, as I mentioned, called Teens for Cancer Patients. And Teens for Cancer Patients is an international youth-led organization dedicated to utilizing the teenage talent to battle cancer. And we fortunately have about 400 volunteers in 11 countries for this cause. Yeah.
Great. I mean, truly commendable, firstly, Varshini, for this amazing concept and the initiative that you have started. So, can you just start by introducing how you, what was the thought behind TCP and why did you feel what made you feel for this cause?
And only why did you start TCP? As not a lot of teens work on this
concept and the cause. So, how did it all start?
And wonderful question. So a lot of people ask me, why did you decide to start TCP? Do you have a personal story with cancer? And unfortunately, like several other teenagers in TCP, I too have a cancer story. In my family, we had people who were diagnosed with cancer, and the financial situation there wasn't great, right? And so the burden of not just having a terminally fatal disease, but also the pressure and burden of finance came upon us, right? And that really has the power to even destroy families. And it was immensely hurtful to see people struggle like this, right? I didn't know this person very closely, but a lot of people in my family did. And I realized I don't need to be the victim in order to step up. I don't need to be a victim to step up. I can simply try to make a change in the world. And I really wanted to. I started researching into this cause, and I came across Kutch Cancer Hospital and Research Center. I came across other wonderful centers that we are actually currently in partnership with, but that have such immensely hurtful stories to even hear. And I realized that cancer doesn't discriminate. Cancer doesn't affect people only in the United States. Cancer affects people in Afghanistan. Cancer affects people in India. Cancer affects people everywhere. And so I thought it was high time that we have an international NGO for teenagers specifically, who are immensely talented if you give them an opportunity to battle this desperate cause. So that's the story behind it.
Wonderful. I think,
It's so beautiful to see that you don't really have to be the victim of the cause to stand up. You can start feeling for others who are facing the problem.
So, in TCP, how do you so do you raise funds for them, or do the counseling, or what part do you play in TCP for the cancer patients?
That's a really great question again. And so TCP focuses on battling cancer in a holistic manner, right? There are so many different aspects to cover. For instance, raising awareness. We have our wonderful social media team. We have our wonderful content writers who consistently put out content, who put out posts to sort of raise awareness about the things that can happen. I'm not sure if you were aware, but about 27% of cervical cancer deaths happen in India. We try to educate people about these shocking statistics that you might not have known previously, right? But hopefully now that you know, you are also inspired to make a change. Yeah. And so that's one of the things we do. We've also raised awareness by putting out events on the impact of COVID-19 on cancer prevention. That was attended by over 90 people, which blows my mind. And it featured the CEO of Karunashraya, Mr. Chandy. It featured the founder of Sanjeevani Life Beyond Cancer, Mrs. Ruby Ahluwalia. It featured our beloved Padma Shri winner, Dr. Ravi Kannan. And it also featured a professor from the World Health Organization, Dr. Ravi Mehrotra. And so these esteemed panelists came together to put forth the problems that were caused in the cancer prevention field by COVID. Actually, about $200 million were cut out from cancer research this year itself, right? Imagine the devastating impacts of that, and not many people know. COVID-19 is, of course, of very urgent priority, but that doesn't mean that cancer isn't.
Exactly.
A problem. And so that's another one of our initiatives. The second thing, like you mentioned, is fundraising, right? And so in India specifically, the government covers some aspects of cancer, right? Like the general surgery. But after visits to the doctor, previous checkups to the doctor, all of this costs a lot. Chemotherapy can go up to over 15,000 rupees, right? It can go up to more than that. And these are people who unfortunately cannot afford that. Right? But early detection is so key. And so some people will just choose not to go to these visits, right? At that huge risk. And so that's why fundraising is at the very heart and core of TCP. We just recently fundraised about 70,000 rupees, and we've been able to circulate about 10,000 pads across India, because access to good menstrual products is key in battling cervical cancer. Like I mentioned before, India has about 27% of cervical cancer deaths, and this is only because of the fact that our girls don't have access to such basic commodities, right? I had a picture of them. I saw a picture of them. They were smiling. They were smiling at the fact that we had provided them these pads. Why? I never look at a pad and go smile. We take it for granted. Such a basic
resource.
It's
a luxury, right? For them, it becomes a luxury. Well, this is a necessity.
Exactly. It becomes a luxury, and it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't. And so that is one of the things that we focus on. And in totality, we've raised over 1 lakh rupees. And our funds will soon proceed to Dr. Ravi Kannan with Kachar Cancer Hospital and Research Center. And they provide surgeries free of cost. They provide treatment free of cost.
Right.
So
that's very frustrating to know that people even fail to, go themselves and check because of the financial, the things that get into it. So they do not get themselves checked. And that's very heartbreaking. But I think that's truly, truly amazing to actually, fundraising is also an important part, but the awareness with it through social media campaigns or the, the events that take place also plays a huge part in the entire process, definitely. And also about, so the cancer, like here, the TCP only, works with teens suffering from cancer or overall all ages?
All ages. It's a team effort, but it's for all.
Right. So it's the teenage, the effort is by the teenagers for all the age groups, right? Okay. So also we wanted to know that you were telling us about some really heart-touching stories you came across during the entire process. Would it be possible for you to share some of them?
Just one, not some of them, just one of
So that are very close to your heart and have motivated you to work even more.
Of course. And so unfortunately, there was this one patient who's ready to mortgage the house. And there was one horror story. This isn't a horror story where a patient was ready to mortgage their child for treatment, right? And the whole team of Kachal, our partner, our beloved partner, had to go rescue that child, had to go rescue that patient, right? That's desperation. That's the desperation that patients face in India for basic treatment. And that story touched my heart because it is just so hard to hear the extent they go to. And another story is that retinoblastoma is an eye cancer disease that happens in children. And so until very recently, there was no government funding for it. There's actually no government funding for some rare cancer types. But that doesn't mean the cancer type doesn't exist, right? It still does. About 4 children every day are born with retinoblastoma. What about them?
Right.
So all these children, watching the parents, right? Seeing the parents go through that, right? Go through that pain of hearing that the child, that innocent, beautiful child of 5 years or 6 years who had a brilliant life in front of them is now faced with such a fatal disease. And do they even have the resources to battle it? Do they have the commodities to battle it? That was extremely touching to my heart because, these parents, they're ready to work over 15 hours. They're ready to sacrifice any and all sleep just to ensure that their child is getting the treatment.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the case.
Exactly.
That shouldn't be the case.
Definitely very heart touching. Exactly. And I also come across these stories definitely where earlier parents are working double shift in the hospital, working, somehow trying to make the ends meet. But do you think the government hospitals some the way, help people in the rural areas to kind of, in their help in their disease? Does that government play any role into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned before, the Indian government has progressed and done such a better job for cancer treatment, right? And so there is still for if you can present a certain income certificate and if you can show if you have a income level below a certain level, then you immediately get free surgery. I believe free surgery. But some of the visits to the hospital, some of the chemotherapy stuff, that's what gets missed out on.
Mm-hmm. And you running a NGO TCP, what help do you want from the other teenagers who are watching?
How can teenagers contribute to this cause? Even even it's not always important to go you're full-fledgedly working on it. But how do you think that teenagers can make a small step? Can take a small step towards this cause, and how can it? Because a small step, little small steps can add to a whole. So what can be those small steps to help in this cause? Mm-hmm. Or even full-fledgedly, what do you feel? How can teenagers help in this?
Mm-hmm. And so I really think that one of the things that's beautiful about TCP is you can choose how involved you want to be, right? You can attend one of the one-time events. You can just choose to read our blogs. You can choose to follow us. But you can also play a bit of a bigger role and you can volunteer with us. You can help fundraise for us. You can donate. You can put on events. There's endless possibilities on doing good, on doing kind, right? You just have to ask, and I think that you find them. And like I mentioned, right, endless ways. We have people doing gaming competitions for cancer. We have people going knocking on doors and just asking for money, and people are kind, they do donate, right? So I think that just educating yourself, right, and extending any support you can financially or passing on the resource, right? Even if you can't donate yourself, that's completely understandable, right? But might be you know someone who can, right? And even 10 rupees donation, that's so important, right? Every single donation, no matter how small, no matter how big, it's still a donation. It's still a step towards a cure. It's still a step towards saving someone's life.
Yeah. And also you mentioned like you got a $10,000 MIT grant. So was it related to TCP or something else?
Because it is a huge thing to get a $10,000 MIT grant. And so how did that go for you? Can you share about that experience?
Of course. And so actually there's this program called the Lemelson MIT program. And so my quarry, I go to school and we are the Quarry Lane Invent team. So I'm actually part of a team that won a $10,000 grant. And so we are creating a device for deaf basketball athletes for communication on the court, right? And so how does the coach or how does the referee whistle to the player that, hey, this is a foul, or hey, you want to move to this direction, right? And so what we want to do is we want to provide a device that beeps either on your ankle or on your hand, and that just provides some sort of a beep, and through sensation, deaf athletes actually have a better sense of sensation than we do, right? And so just providing some sort of beeping sound, some sort of signal, right, is our goal. And that's what we were working on.
Okay. I mean, that's our diversity, Varshini. I think you have been working on creating a device, and on the other hand, you've been working with cancer. But wow, like.
And where do you see TCP in the next 5 or 4 years? Where do you see how can it be more impactful?
Such a huge impact. I'm seeing this is a huge impact right now, but after 5 years, I'm sure it's going to go on another level and keep moving on and on and on. But where do you see TCP is going to be? Not usually we have to talk about numbers, but also where do you think it can be holistically after 5 or 6 years?
Mm-hmm. And so first off, let's talk numbers, and then I'll talk to you about the holistic development. Mm-hmm. And so just in the recent year, I'd be overjoyed if we hit about 10,000 people. That would just blow my mind. But also, 1,000 volunteers just in this year. So since we're 400 now, so I'd love to hit 1,000 sometime. That would be insane to say that, hey, we have this 1,000-member, organization.
A family of working together.
A family of. Exactly. And so that's one of my goals. And then my biggest goal is to help at least 100 people. Like, I would love to help about 100 people in any way possible, right? If it's just one chemotherapy visit, if it's just, if it's even complete surgery, it doesn't matter. I want to help at least 100 cancer patients. And it's just so touching to even think about. But
100 lives, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many people have you helped till now? Like, you plan to help 100. Till how much is TCP? How many people has TCP helped?
Impacted us, or not just impacted?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so with regards to the goals we've helped, and we recently conducted a sanitary pad drive, as I mentioned before. We've helped about 200 goals, and so that's really great. But with regards to cancer patients, we've helped about 10 right now, but we're hoping with every upcoming month we can.
But 10 is a huge change. Like 10 helping them financially, in terms of emotionally, is a huge support. I think you have saved 10 lives. Everybody says that if you're making, helping with your presence, if you're even helping one person, that's a huge change. And you've already, with such a ruthless disease, cancer, and helping 10 patients is genuinely commendable. I mean, amazing.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
And how are you managing 400 volunteers or team members? So how do you manage all of them?
Talking
Yeah.
from the perspective of a president, like you're working with, like you're the founder of TCP. So how does it feel to have 4 volunteers? Because a lot of team spirit comes into it, a lot of management skills that come into place. So how do you manage all of that?
And so I want to just start off by saying that, I really wish that I could talk to every single one of those volunteers, but unfortunately, I can't. It's just sort of not possible. And in the start itself, it wasn't, because this is very shocking to me. But we circulated a lot of stories across Bangalore, and we had about 100 volunteers in the first day of launch. And so that day itself, I realized, like, I'm not going to be able to talk to every single person. That's a bit but we still, every single volunteer still matters so much to us. And so what happens is we are divided up into a bunch of teams, right? And every single team has one leader, right? And so they are our officers. They're the board of officers, and I handle directly the board of officers. Right. And I also help with handling the chapters, since each chapter has about 15-20 people. So separate teams of like 20 people, 50 people, things like that. That's what I handle from a managing perspective. But also with regards to just the environment at TCP and managing that, for me, it's very much a credit system. How much ever you put in, you get out, right? The second we notice a volunteer who's consistently putting in effort, they get an officer position. I don't really care if they're that capable or not, right? Even if in someone's perspective they're not that capable, I don't really care if they're putting in the hard work, since a hardworking person will become capable at some point or the other. So that's something I truly and firmly believe in. And so anyone who's ready to put in the hard work gets promoted automatically at TCP. And so we have volunteers of the month for each individual team, and volunteers with the most volunteers of the month get those officer positions. Or if they're just doing outstanding, we just immediately bring them onto the team, since we're always looking for new talent. And so that's a bit about that system.
And so do you provide volunteers with certificates so they feel accomplished or they have done something? So
simply for participating. Sometimes we even give certificates for just circulating stories, right? If you, we understand students who are studying for like NEET or JEE, like we understand that. So even if you just want to take out 10 minutes of your day and circulate stories, we'll still give you a certificate, right? Even that to us is very important, and we want to recognize that. So anyone who's part of the TCP family can request for those certificates. But also in addition, right, once certain teams, for instance, the research team hit a certain hallmark, they get the opportunity to speak with MIT students. They get the opportunities to speak with learned researchers such as Dr. Ravi Mehrotra that we feature during our event, right? And so that's something that we provide. And in addition, we also provide letters of recommendation, right? So if this comes only if someone has been working really hard. So a better letter of rec if you work really hard, we're happy to provide that.
Right. Great. I think that's really great. So each volunteer has their own, set of time which they work, and they, contribute to TCP according to their time, their efforts. So with that, that's
so great. Are the seats always open if anyone watching wants to join TCP and feels for this? So how can they contact you or something?
Please feel free to email teensforcancerpatients@gmail.com. So that's teensforcancerpatients@gmail.com. Or please feel free to visit our website, where all of the information, more detailed information, is provided. And our website is teensforcancerpatients.org. So org.
Right, we'll put that in the description as well. So great. I think that was lovely talking to you. Any last message you want to give to people watching, or simply teenagers, on behalf of TCP?
Yes, of course. And so the last message I'd like to provide, and just restate really, is please don't be afraid to make a change in the world. You can do it. If you try, you can absolutely do it. If you feel for a cause, don't hesitate and don't wait. Any method you can possibly support, it does create a difference. You are important to a change. You are important to the cause, right? And so that is my biggest message to people out there. Just don't be afraid to step up and step out of your comfort zone and start something or do something or just help make the world a bit of a better place.
Yeah, great.
That's beautiful.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Varshini, for sharing what TCP is, what made you start TCP and how can we contribute to TCP. Thank you so much for taking out time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.